MarriageRx is now available as a book. The authors, Dan and Jody Mayhew and Calvin and Julie Tadema, teach about marriage from God's point of view. The concepts and insights taught in retreats, workshops, and classes have been published in this book to make them more widely available.
We wanted to write this book because we watched a couple, a close friend of ours, nearly reach a point of dissolution of their marriage. We didn't want to see that happen. Something was missing, something needed to be addressed because they weren't unique in the problems that they were facing.
I think the primary one that stood out to me as we were working on the material together is the Trinity model for relating. And consistently the comments that come back to us when we're teaching that section are along the lines of, we've never heard anything like this before. People just don't have the vision of seeing their marriage be a reflection of the Godhead, of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
We didn't want to fix what was wrong so much as to show the right picture of marriage. Because if somebody knows what it's supposed to look like, they can move toward that. The first chapter is titled Being One Flesh. It covers the supernatural way a man and woman are joined together and become one flesh. They're no longer operating in parallel lives, but truly their identities are merged.
When people have heard what we have to share, the common comment is, how come I was never taught this before? How come I've never seen this before? The whole idea of it's an aha moment when you begin to look at marriage as not just between two people, but that it is a merging our lives in a divine community with the Godhead. I think that's been one of the incredible things people are laying hold of, is this divine community that takes place in our marriages when we view oneness that way.
The second chapter covers covenant. It talks about the difference between a covenant and a contract. The marriage vows and covenants do not serve to protect the person, but to establish and maintain unity of the couple. The third chapter is called Naked and Unashamed. It's about living in barrier-free relationship. It begins in innocence, and it's about learning intimacy together. This leads to openness with each other rather than hiding strategies.
We recently heard from a couple that we had shared this with, shared the book with, done some mentoring and discipling with. And one of the comments that they made was on the chapter on Naked and Unashamed. And they talked about how in their own relationship there had been nakedness, but there had been a lot of shame. And in the world, there's a lot of nakedness, but there's a lot of shame. The idea of being able to be physically and emotionally and spiritually naked and unashamed was new to them, but as we worked with them, it became a reality, a truth that they're now seeing happen in their marriage.
The fourth chapter is called Forgiven, Forgiving, and Reconciliation. It talks about how to reset a relationship, how sin can be redeemed but not forgotten, how love replaces judgment, and a husband and wife are reconciled to God and then to each other. The fifth chapter is called Kinds of Relating. When individuals must relate to each other, it must be done in love rather than some form of control, such as law, shame, lust or needs, and fear, which are inappropriate ways to interact. The last chapter is called Trust. It summarizes the prior chapters, bringing these concepts and truths together to show how to develop or to reestablish trust in a relationship.
As we work through the foundational components of rebuilding or reestablishing relationship, when we got to the section on trust, to help people understand that trust is something that has to be granted, it can't be earned, it can't be recaptured somehow, it has to be a gift that's given between the partners.
At the end of each chapter, you will find tasks or assignment that help activate the information that's presented.
The various assignments that are part of the homework, the various questions that go along with the material that helps them focus in on areas that they haven't felt safe to talk about in the past, that they haven't had permission or freedom to talk about. It seems like it helps them establish a place of safety to begin a conversation that will lead them to a better relationship.
I want to talk just for a second about why we named this MarriageRx. MarriageRx, prescription for radical marriage. We wanted to come up with looking at marriage from God's point of view rather than just from our own point of view. As we went to prayer, and I had just closed my eyes, and I heard a response from the Lord in my own spirit, and it was, this really isn't about your marriages, it's about mine. And I think that was my aha moment. It became the motivation for everything else that I participated in, because this really is about the marriage of Christ and His church and preparing the bride for His return.
Find out more online at MarriageRx.org. Copies of the book can be purchased online at MarriageRx.org, through the publisher twoworldsmedia.com, or on Amazon.com. Contact us directly for information regarding bulk orders or to schedule a retreat or workshop in your area.